All right. Now that the fights are over, now we've heard from the different athletes and where they want to go from here, what they want to do next. Let's deal with what Rose will do next at 125. Now, she did an interview and she's talked about her desire to have a rematch against Manon. She's open to a rematch against Manon. With as many rematches as she's had, she's open to having another rematch, this time against Manon. So that's a loss she's willing to redeem or try to redeem, unlike her loss to Carla. She's pretty much let that go, the possibility of a trilogy go, which makes sense. And it makes more sense why she left that division, I think. You know, why stay there, get the belt back, only to possibly lose it again, probably to Carla. Carla would probably beat Yan Xiaonan again. What's the point? But it's making more sense. Now, this is a very long video, and I'm not going to play nearly even half of it, not even a quarter of it. It took me a while just to get to this part. I'm going to play a very short portion of this. Then I'm going to get into who would win the rematch. Because let me tell you, I'm less sure about the outcome of a rematch now than I was before the first fight. I'm less certain of a rematch now. And I'm just as in the dark about Manon as far as her striking is concerned. I'll say that. I'm still in the dark. I don't know. I don't feel like there's much I can take from that fight against Rose, me personally. I cannot rely on the information I gathered from that first fight. Now listen to this.
Rematch. I've thought about a bunch of different things, but definitely like rematch comes to mind, or I'll get her eventually because I almost beat her with one hand.
She said, I'll get her eventually. So it sounds like she'd like to get her back. Like she'd like a rematch. So it's something that might happen. So this is kind of weird. Something I didn't expect. I don't think anybody expected. Now, a good reason why you want to listen to this video or check out this video is because she puts a lot of emphasis on her decision to stay at 125. After this fight, there was a lot of people who started talking about how she needs to move back down to 115. And I don't think that's going to work. Wait a minute.
So, that's how I feel about that. I'm definitely going to say, I want to put a little more muscle on. I don't want to go back down. Definitely not. I felt so much better not cutting that weight because, and that's my...
Okay, so she doesn't plan on going back to 115. Another unexpected move. I think most people thought that if she were to lose, especially by unanimous decision, that she'd probably move back down. Probably go back to straw weight. But now she seems more certain that she'll be fighting at flyweight than she was before. At the very least, just as certain that she wants to fight at flyweight. Okay, so that's out the window.
Maybe that's my biggest gripe was I didn't listen to nothing. I give Manon respect. I actually, as much as um I was the one that walked up to her, shook her hand, hey, good job, you know what I mean?
Okay,
Like,
okay. Now, as a fan of the sport, this is the stuff I like to hear and deal with. This is the kind of thing I like to hear and deal with. I think it's part of the sport. The type of relationship you have with them and stuff like that is part of the sport. Okay, so, you know, I feel like this is very relevant.
good fight, blah, 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 you know, respect. When she was sitting on the stool, I was standing up. I was walking around ready to go 2 more rounds with one hand, you know. And then I didn't listen to the rest of her interview, like everything she said word for word, but I did see a headline saying, she says I'm too small and I didn't win a round. Well, I disagree with both of those things. I think I dropped your ass, so I'm definitely not too small.
Now, stop with that. Now, she's saying she dropped her, but from the angle I saw, it didn't look like she even hit Manon. Didn't even look like she connected with that shot. But watching the fight live, I thought the same thing. I thought she knocked Manon down. So, I don't know. We have to see it again. I have to look at it again and look at it from different angles.
I might have had some moments of like freaking out because I couldn't grip my fingers together or I couldn't make a fist. Yeah, and but definitely not too small. You know what I mean? If anything, why were you running away from too small? Why?
Oh, see? Manon has to answer. She has to respond to that. She has to answer for that. That's fight talk right there. That's fight. You got to respect that. It's not about whether you like Rose or not. You got to respect that. Manon, get in here. Why were you moving away? Why was you running away from a fighter you say is too small? So I'm less certain about what happens in the rematch now. I would still take Manon. Like if they had the rematch next, I would still take Manon, but I'd be less certain that she'd win. Far less certain that she'd win the rematch.
Why did you originally call me out if I'm too small?
Now, I don't think Manon just randomly called Rose out. I think Manon called Rose out because she had talked to the UFC and the UFC offered her Rose as an opponent. So the next time Manon talked to the media, she pointed out that that she would be open to fighting. It was between Rose and somebody else that Manon named that she would be open to fighting. And Rose was one of them. And she said, I'd be open to fighting Rose as well. It wasn't like she just called Rose out of nowhere. At least that's not what I think happened.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. So, I have no problems with if she thinks she won and all that stuff. Great. You know what I mean? Good job to you. Respect. But don't.
But even if she didn't call Rose out, you know, don't say she needs to move back down. She's too small, because then what about Alexa Grasso? She's another former strawweight who moved up. She's currently the champion. You know, what about Alexa Grasso? There are other girls who've moved up who I've even thought was too small. But they moved up successfully. So I don't know about too small. I have to agree with Rose more than I agree with Manon there as far as her being too small for 125. Now, granted, there are probably some girls at 125 who are bigger than any girl that Rose fought at 115. Sure. But that can be true as well as Rose not being too small for the division. She might not be too small for the division. And she might still fight girls bigger than any girl she's ever fought at 115. Like Manon. Manon is an example. But I don't like Rose's confidence here after the fight, man. Now listen to this.
Don't say I'm too small, because that's not the case at all. Aside from the fact,
she's talking like she just don't care no more. Like, and she wants smoke with fighters. Now, which is, hey, it will get my attention. This is what I've been. If she was all thugged out, do you know, she could have had so much fun with her moniker, her character, Thug Rose. She opened the door for herself to be one of the most animated, let's be honest now, with the whole Thug Rose persona. She opened the door to be one of the, or at least probably the most animated female fighter ever. And boy, she would have cleaned house with that Thug Rose character. She could have fed into that, and really, I don't know why she couldn't just switch and change characters like that. All you got to be is be that chick from the hood, throw away some of the professionalism. But she never did that. But anyways.
Fact that, there was something I was going to say. But if I have a little more time too, definitely would put some more size on. And that's what I'm going to concentrate on right now. But yeah, so, I just
see that, I don't even think that's possible. I don't even think it's possible for her to put on muscle unless she get on steroids. And then she's going to do what? Put pressure and strain on her heart, which something no athlete wants to do that. She's maxed out. Can you imagine how many push-ups she's done in her life? She's maxed out. Her muscles, I believe, have maxed out. She's done all the growing. Her muscles have done all the growing they're ever going to do. And they've grown to support the amount of muscle that she currently has on her body. She uses weed. And with some people, their body just holds on to more body fat. So she's never going to look lean. Definitely not at 125, but she's just never going to look lean at 115. If she was went her whole life without weed and without ever having boosted her estrogen before and, been in the sports her whole life, she'd probably be lean at 115. She'd have less body fat. You see her abs. She'd have a six-pack and stuff like that. Then nobody would be saying, she need to move down to 105. But, yeah, I don't even think it's possible for her to put on muscle, but we'll see.
To me, it's like, I appreciate, to me, it's like, I have no problems giving somebody props. And that's the thing. I feel like,
boy, Rose is the queen. Goofy is all get up. I know she's reading half the time, but good Lord.
A headline, I don't know. I guess maybe I should actually listen to her thoughts of the fight fully, but the headline saying that she thinks I'm too small, it's like, man, come on, man. You could have said anything else. You know what I mean? Like, that's not true. That's not even a fact. So,
you see how vehemently she rebukes that idea that she's too small for 125. That all tells me that she's staying here. That's kind of what that suggests for me. Like, she's comfortable here. She's feel like this is her new home. So she's going all out against anybody who thinks she's too small for the division. So she's most likely staying here. And which is fine and good for me to know what division you're going to fight at. And especially good for people who do like matchmaking and different channels do stuff like that.
It's the same. Yeah, maybe she might have had 5 to 10 pounds of I would say maybe 5 pounds, 2 to 5 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, 2 to 5 pounds of muscle. That is probably all Manon has on Rose, to be honest with you. She probably only has 2 to 5 pounds more muscle. No way 10 pounds. No way Manon is carrying around 10 pounds more muscle than Rose. I seriously doubt that. Because if you gain 5 pounds of muscle, people, that's significant muscle growth. That's pretty significant. Okay, so 5 pounds. Yeah, I don't think Rose is too small for the division.
Maybe a little bit more of just like water weight. But that doesn't, I don't even think that matters, you know what I mean? Because if it was a real fight, the fight would have kept going on. And I would have eventually, I believe, I would have found a way to win even with just...
Oh, man. See, this is what I watch sports for, man. Talk like this. This is what I keep an ear out for. Stuff like this. Now, a lot of people don't like to have these discussions of what if it was 5 rounds. I do. Because based on how this 3-round fight went, it gives me an idea on who would win a 5-round fight. So if y'all ever have a 5-round fight, guess what? I'm going to use whatever happened in this fight to determine or help me determine what's going to happen in the 5-round fight. It's always relevant. It's not going to help you to ignore a whole fight that these two done had. And it's not going to help anybody to ignore the circumstances of the fight. So she believes she would have beaten Manon had it been a 5-round fight, which is something I said immediately after the fight. Had Manon been my fighter and that been a 5-round fight, my anxiety would have went through the roof after that head collision. I'm like, oh no, and we got 2 whole rounds to go. Bad. Just horrible. There is no guarantee. All I'm saying is there is no guarantee that Manon would have won that had it been a 5-round fight. Especially with the direction that fight was headed. And people, listen, I'm more fair than I am everything. I'm more fair than I am emotional. I believe Rose when she said that she took the 2nd round off for the most part. I believe her when she said that during most or all of the 2nd round she was battling, and it's really more than that, man. I'm telling y'all now, it's as soon as that injury happened, she started fighting one-handed. Now, it's not about how fighting one-handed makes you feel inside. It's not an emotional thing. It's the fact that you can't punch with your right hand. No matter what you think about that, the fact remains that is a factor in how the fight unfolds. Where fighter A with the hand injury is now not hitting her opponent in these opportunities where she has an opening to land a right hand. Rather than Manon get hit in those moments, nothing is coming Manon's way because of this injury. And when a punch does come her way from the right hand, Manon takes it like nothing because there's no power behind it, because you can't land with power when you got a dislocated finger and can't make a fist.
One hand. So that's That's my opinion, because I was still like, I took the whole second round of like battling my own mentality of like, okay, my I can't make a fist. What's going on? It's
Now,
messed up.
I'm not trying to suggest that Rose did anything miraculous or superhuman. She did the same thing countless, I would say the vast majority of other fighters do. They fight through injuries. They fight despite the injury. She still fought through the injury, and I'm not saying that Manon lost the fight. I'm not saying that Rose actually won the fight. You know, me pointing this out is not making it an excuse for Rose, because I have no reason to. I have no motive to make an excuse for Rose, other than pointing out the fact that this fight would most likely look much different than the first fight looked. I mean, it's pretty irrefutable.
Whew, yeah. And then whatchamacallit, dang, I lost my train of thought. But no, like, but over time I was more comfortable with like, the situation, and I feel like if it was a 5-round fight, I believe in myself that I would have found a way to, I would have probably jabbed a little bit more, I would have kicked a little bit more.
Oh man, had that been a 5-round fight against a Rose with 2 hands, how much confidence would y'all really have in Manon? I'm mainly talking about the Manon fanatics. There's a lot of die-hard fans of Manon out there. Several of them have found my channel. Like, do y'all really have that much confidence? And do you really think she would fare that well against a 2-handed Rose after that head collision, and she got 2 more rounds to go? Man, it would feel like Manon's on the clock.
In hindsight, hindsight's 2020, right? So, not like, I give her respect, because I do believe, she probably, I would need to watch it again, but like, she probably landed more points, I would say. I watched it one time, so, my judgments maybe not the whole totally clear yet, but
okay, now you see how goofy Rose is. She's goofy. It's a struggle just to listen to her. Try to complete a sentence. As goofy as she is, when she gets into the cage, she is competitive. That's just what it is. And man, she looked, especially before, and the real problem I have with this fight is how comfortable Rose looked after the injury. That is what worries me more than anything. Is how well she took the dislocated finger, the inability to make a fist and land power shots. Those right hands you saw her, and what? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Have anybody watched the fight? What were y'all watching?
12 wins.
Oh, sorry about that. When you watch this fight, you will notice that Rose comes out in an orthodox stance. Doesn't she? She came out and stayed in an orthodox stance. She did not switch southpaw until the injury. She switched southpaw because of the injury. Why would she do that? Why would she switch southpaw? She switched southpaw after injuring her right hand because she's an orthodox fighter. That means normally she stands with her left hand in front, her right hand in back, and throws power shots, lands power shots with her right hand. Well, after she injured her right hand, now she can't throw a power shot. The only way she can throw a power shot is if she throws it from a southpaw stance. So when she switches to southpaw, she does it so that she can land a power left hand, so that she can land a power shot. Now, because she did this, now she has to look at what she's working with from a southpaw stance. She has no right jab from the southpaw stance. You can forget about that. She has no right hook from a southpaw stance. You can forget about that. For the most part, when you take that away from a southpaw fighter, you've taken away 50% of their game or more. No right-handed jab and no right-handed hook. You know how dependent southpaws are on that hook coming from the blind side of an orthodox fighter? They're very dependent on that. So after switching to southpaw, she still had like less than 50% of her game available to her. And listen, again, fighting through a broken hand or a finger where you can't make a proper fist, that's not the same as fighting with a broken jaw. If I got a broken jaw, guess what? I can still throw my hands properly. You still got to deal with the same amount of offense. You're going to have the same number of bullets flying at you. I would much rather my opponent have a hand that's out of order than to have a broken jaw. Because if I know that they got a broken jaw, I know they're probably going to fight harder because they want to end the fight, get the fight over with so they go to the hospital. They're probably going to come really try to take my head off. If they just got a broken jaw, fighting through that is nowhere near the same. Come on, people. Come on, people. I know some of y'all know fighting better than that. You gotta stay true to the sport, man. Stay true to the sport through and through. So she switches southpaw and now is using 50% or less of her game from a southpaw stance. Also, she can land the only effective power shot available with her fists, which is a straight left hand from a southpaw stance. And Rose is a fighter who is heavily dependent on her what? Boxing. For a boxing dependent fighter like that, an Alexa Grasso type, you cannot look at a performance where they're fighting one-handed as a true gauge of how competitive their opponent is against their style and skill set. That's all I'm saying. That has nothing to do with making an excuse for anybody. That's a whole nother subject. And that's what I'm dealing with. And that fight made me very uncomfortable through and through. And especially before the injury. Man, I never like to see Rose that confident. That injury took place around 3 minutes and 40 seconds left in the first round. You watch how Rose performs before that injury. People, she got too much confidence for my comfort. Far too much. It did not look like she was in there with a beast at all. I mean, she really came in there with a lot of confidence. She was fighting with tremendous confidence that she knew she was just overall better than Manon. And Manon really started landing shots after that injury. That's when Manon landed a check right hook, which was like one of her clean shots that she landed. After Rose injured her hand is when a good deal of those shots started to land, and Rose did not switch to a southpaw stance until after that finger injury. And notice immediately after the injury, Rose went for like a lead left uppercut. So she started throwing these real awkward, unusual, ill-advised punches. I mean, you don't lead with uppercuts, period, for the most part. But she led with an uppercut from her lead hand, which was now her left hand. But she was throwing her left hand rather than the right, because that was after the injury. So the whole decision to even throw a lead uppercut was in response to the injury. Again, that is me acknowledging that the finger was a factor. The inability to use that hand was a factor in the fight. And that if they have a rematch, poor Manon might get whooped. Manon might get whooped. And the thing is, with Rose, these girls might need to be careful. Rose might be she might be maturing. She might be starting to grow up and stop being so overly dramatic and just not care and just, do her job and fight her career and maybe even have fun. And let me tell you something. If she ever gets to the point where she looks at what she does as fun, that's when she'll be most effective.
I would say, yeah, I believe, I don't know, man. Yeah. But yeah, but I just feel like I could get a little bit more respect, you know what I mean, after a fight like that with one hand, So, and then moving up a weight class, like for her to call me too small, like, well, why did you call me out in the first place? A long time ago, she said, I'll welcome her to the strawweight division. To the flyweight division. Why you want to fight somebody too small? Doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? So to me, it's like, I don't know. I that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe I need to listen to like the actual interview or whatever. But and then the fact that she said I didn't even win a round, it's like, because that was another headline that I saw. It's like, I definitely feel like I at least won the first round from the first time I saw it, but I will go back and watch it. So
okay, she said she thought she lost or won the first round. From what I heard, most people feel like she won the third round, and that's the problem I got with that fight too. She got a broken finger, and of course it's Rose. If I wanted a fighter to get discouraged because of a dislocated finger, I would choose Rose as the fighter to get discouraged because of a dislocated finger. So she out there dislocated in the first round, go all second round, dislocated still, comes out in the third round and she got more confidence than she had in the second round, more confidence she had in the first round. No. If you watch her fight against Chukagian, you'll see Chukagian in that third round, she was walking forward more than she had previously. When you see that, I'm telling you, I've seen that before several times. That is a bad pattern, and that's a red flag. When you see in the last round, a fighter typically is getting walked down by different fighters, I can almost tell you and guarantee you that's a weakness in that fighter's game. That third round, Chukagian was probably getting hit, but she was more confident than she was in the first 2 rounds. Go back, watch that fight. In that third round, that's when she was the most confident. Even though she was getting hit, that's what I don't like. Even if Chukagian was getting hit more often in that third round, it would make me uncomfortable that she was still confident enough to put more pressure than she did in the first 2 rounds in that third round. What's making you so confident? You're not getting hit hard enough. Something ain't working right. Because if you walking forward, putting a whole lot of pressure on me, and I'm hitting you, and you still just putting pressure, that means I ain't got no power. A big part of the reason why you hit your opponent is to get respect from the power of the shot. Huh? If I hit you, I want to see you stumble, blink your eyes. Huh? I want to see your face probably get distorted a little bit. I want to see some results. If you laugh after my best shots, that's a problem. So, here you got Manon being walked down in the third round by Rose of all people, mentally fragile Rose, fighting with a dislocated finger, and you're saying she too small for the division. But she walking you down, and you in certain spots just running away. That make me uncomfortable. And it's to the point where I don't care what Manon's reason for doing that was. Oh, I felt I had the fight in the bag. And it's not about how her loss of blood made her feel. Her tactics was not destructive enough to even make Rose not want to walk her down in the third round. Rose should have been beaten up bad enough by the end of the second for her to come out in that third like she was on crack. She came out like she did a couple lines over in the corner. No, so listen, it's nothing against Manon. I just want to make sure I got a proper understanding of Manon, of her caliber, at least of her performance where she is right now. I don't want to make no mistakes. But that finger of Rose was such a factor, it dictated and was the reason, as far as I'm aware, why Rose was turning southpaw. She was turning southpaw to land a power shot. To land a power shot. And when she wasn't fighting in the southpaw stance, she was overly using her left hand. The little counter punches, the little jabs, the little hooks. Like exclusively using the left hand, overly using it, and just not using the right hand. You can see her little goofy finger just sticking up, dislocated. That's a factor in the fight. It's not making an excuse for Rose. And then Rose actually landed some of these goofy punches. She landed that lead left uppercut. Like, nah, man. Because if Rose was confronted with really destructive offense and while she got a broken finger, man, Rose would have folded. Listen, let me put it like this. If she would have been in there against Erin Blanchfield and with a dislocated finger, Erin would have stopped Rose. Rose would have got stopped. If Rose would have opted to fight on, the pressure would have caused Rose to fold. Are you kidding? Aaron would have been all over her. First of all, Aaron would have started mauling her. How you think that finger would have held up while she getting mauled? Rose up there fighting with this dislocated finger comfortably. Why? Because Manon is opting to have a chess match strike, and Manon is really just throwing one strike at a time. Manon's offense is not all that destructive. Yes, she's throwing a straight, good jab. Good for her. It's real technical, good timing, good distance management with the jab, with her right hand and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but she is not putting it together to the where she has a destructive offense. It's not going down like that. And to just have a crippled Rose growing in confidence makes me uncomfortable. Make me uncomfortable. But Manon is the bigger fighter. She does have good fundamentals. She's got a good jab. Manon has a good jab. And the thing is, I don't like what I saw from Manon before the head clash and after Rose injured her finger. You would think Manon would seriously start to put distance between herself and Rose after she got an injured Rose, a one-handed Rose, who was now fighting from a southpaw stance, who likely didn't practice to fight from a southpaw stance, likely didn't train to fight from a southpaw, but doing it on the fly. You couldn't put greater distance between yourself and a Rose Namajunas with a dislocated finger doing all that. And Rose switches to the southpaw stance, and people, she starts landing shots still. I got to hold some of that against Manon. I got to look at how competitive her opponent was given the conditions of the fight. And I'm the last person who'll get up here and start defending Rose. But I got more honor for the combat, for the sport, than that. I'm not going to, sit up here and lie on the fighter or refuse to say that something happened if it actually happened, especially if it's a factor in the fight. It was a factor. And against top fighters, Manon is not that destructive. She's not as destructive as she was against, the fighters at the lower divisions. She's not as destructive at the higher portion of the division as she was at the lower portion of the division. Are any other fighters destructive, even though they're fighting at the top of the division? Yes. In other words, are any fighters getting stoppages that are fighting at the top of the division? Yes, Aaron is. I got to, sort of lean towards Aaron as being more likely to be the next long-reigning flyweight champion based on the numbers, based on the math, logistics of the fight, so on and so forth. Now, who gets the next title shot, I really don't care. I figured the next two title contenders will most likely be these two. Even if they have a fight, maybe, most likely be these two. So no dog in the race as far as that. But, and I wouldn't even make an argument about which one deserves it more. I don't even think, if one deserves it more than the other, I don't think it's by much. So it's, hey, flip a coin, whatever is better for business, whatever. Whichever fighter is more okay with sitting out. Hey, Manon seems more anxious to get a title shot right now. So, hey, let her have the first shot. It'll probably give Aaron more information to download. And let me tell you, that might work out bad for Manon. You go have another fight. Now Aaron might see you get exposed a little bit, or maybe a little bit more. You never know what Aaron and her team might have gathered from any number of Manon's previous fights, including the one she just had with Rose. Okay, she have another fight that might give them something else to study. That might backfire. Right? That subsequent fight for Manon, even if it's for the title, might be exactly what Aaron needs to create the right blueprint to take Manon out. So you can't run, you can't duck and hide. If you're the best, we're about to find out. But listen, man, if Rose decides to stay in the sport and somehow becomes comfortable fighting, she's going to be a player, I would think, at 125. And you have to imagine so, maybe. If Grasso is a player at 125, at least, she got the title. Grasso maybe has not fought as many strong wrestlers and grapplers yet. But hey, she fought some. She fought fighters who tried to take her down. Fought the champion. So she survived it. Who's to say that Rose won't? Who knows? Maybe Rose strong enough to get back to her feet if Valentina takes her down. So we might have to deal with Rose for a while up here at the top of the flyweight division. It is what it is. Now, these fights coming up here next weekend, Tracy Cortez, Jesuda Vicious, Lupita, I'm going to take her over Elise Reed. Man, she is going to, I have a feeling, do Elise Reed bad as far as wrestling. She's going to take Elise Reed down. That fight might end by stoppage. Yeah, that's probably not the best fight for Elise Reed, but whatever. Shevchenko might get her belt back. We need to accept that. She might get that belt back. She might go out here and destroy Grasso, to be honest. We all know it's possible. She could come out here and just starch Alexa Grasso. They only have to reevaluate everything. If that happens, if she comes out here and starches Alexa Grasso, I still think she'll be in trouble and have some trouble against Erin Blanchfield. Grasso is nowhere near the offensive fighter, the type of offensive fighter that Blanchfield is. Another thing about Blanchfield that somebody pointed out, that guy Monk Down or something, pointed out. He said that he thought Manon was intimidated by Rose's name. Intimidated by Rose's name. And that Erin Blanchfield has a better chance at defeating all the other top contenders. Because Erin is not intimidated by anybody's name. I think there might be some truth to that. No, I think there is some truth to that. There's some truth to that. There's just something about Erin where she really don't care about your reputation or anything like that. Here's the comment right here. It said, I watched Manon's other fights. It says she wasn't aggressive in this fight. And that's what I said. She had a couple of aggressive bursts in the third round, Manon. But wow, that's like almost 2 rounds of your opponent having a dislocated finger. And according to you, being too small for the division. You only teeing off her on her twice. She had plenty of time to tee off on Rose. She wasn't aggressive. He said, I believe she was psyched out by Rose. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that Erin Blanchfield is going to beat Rose. She's going to beat Manon, going to beat Grasso. Erin is going to beat Rose and Valentina. Why? Because she's not psyched out by their name. I think there's some truth to that. So I wasn't impressed with Manon at all. So I think she played it safe because she was psychologically scared of Rose. I felt that too. It felt like Manon was showing a lot of respect for Rose's reputation and sort of anticipating great offense that she wasn't actually dealing with. So it almost looked like Manon was in there fighting ghosts. She almost looked like she was being too cautious. You know, that's what it boiled down to. She wasn't aggressive like that. You're in there with a fighter you saying too small for a division. Come to find out that same fighter has mental breakdowns in fights, in the middle of fights all the time. And that same fighter got a dislocated finger. And she brewing with confidence in the third round. Hey, we can at least conclude from that her opponent must not be all that aggressive. Man, Rose would not have come out there in that third round brewing with confidence like that, ready to fight like that against Erin Blanchfield, had she been fighting Erin Blanchfield for almost 2 rounds with a dislocated finger. She would have been tired of seeing Erin Blanchfield after almost 2 rounds of fighting Erin with a dislocated finger. She would have started that round out moving laterally. Okay? When that third round started, she went right after Manon. She wouldn't have done that against no Erin Blanchfield. Come on, man. Now, hey, we're about to find out who the real bosses are. So some of these fighters who we think highly of gonna lose. So I'm just trying to predict who that might be before it happens. Right? Predicting something that most likely will happen before Manon retires or gets cut from the UFC. But yeah, interesting subject. And I still think that was an interesting contest. Even though Rose's finger was compromised, one hand was compromised. Again, it's not about how the hand makes you feel and your mentality and fight through it. You can't just make a decision to fight through not being able to use one of your hands. You simply can't use it. It's out of commission. No matter how hard you try, you can't punch with the same power. The punches you land are going to feel like air punches, like nothing. Especially your opponent's adrenaline flowing. Ain't going to feel nothing. You can't put no power behind that thing with it like that. You can't make a proper fist. Your right hand is now worthless. Worthless. That's a factor in the fight, man. That's a factor in the fight, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can no longer use your right hand. You can no longer land power right hands. So you're compromised in the fight. We'll see if Manon can crank it up. She don't have to get a stoppage. She can just crank it up. Crank up the intensity. Tee off on your opponent more often. Have more flurries where it looks like you're trying to stop them. But Manon is really not even giving us that. It's just a careful tap, tap, harmless type of display. And she might get the title and she might keep it using that style. All I'm saying is there's some more destructive styles out there than that. There's some girls who are more destructive than that. Okay? And she better be careful fighting like that. You're not putting nothing behind what you're doing with a Natalia Silva or even a Kareem Silva. Chicks out here who knocking girls down. Of course, she hasn't fought the top fighters that Manon has, but we'll see. We ain't got nothing but time. That is all for this live stream.